Hello and welcome to Design Voices Elevated Season 2. Today we have a special guest. He's actually the first man that I'm interviewing. I couldn't pass it because this is a super interesting person and profile, and I'm really looking forward to this interview. I've met Lex. We were actually discussing, it was 2016. We actually studied in the same university in Centro San Martin, but in different years. And so now it's been a while, and I'm really curious to hear where you're up to.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
When you said it earlier, you said 2016 was 8 years. I said, Jesus, that's such a long time. But you came in and lectured. I think the module. I feel like it was on service design.
I could probably, yeah.
I think it was on service design, yeah. And I remember at that time, I just come on this innovation masters and didn't really know what to expect. I think there was two ones. There was the Royal College of Art, where they had innovation design engineering, and then there was CSM, which had innovation management. As somebody who's very big on the making side of stuff, I think I wanted to actually study at RCA, but I ended up at like CSM, which is also such a great was a great experience for me as well. So I'm entirely grateful to people like Jamie and John and others and yourself for like just exposing me to a wide range of stuff, which I think has contributed a lot all these years later.
Do you want to tell us a bit about your story? Like, how did you get here? What's your background?
It's an interesting one. I think for me as an individual, I guess, around like 18, 19, with a group of 3 friends of mine, we were very much interested in like just entrepreneurship in general. I think at that time there was a kind of like I think at that time, if I go back, like this is like post 2008 crisis, economic recovery. So there seems to be this sort of strategy of like promoting entrepreneurship as like this thing to boost economy. There was the whole narrative about the uni dropouts and stuff. And so we were very much inspired and like, sorry guys, I got a little cough. We were very much inspired by like how can we launch our own like tech businesses? So we got the bug. It was like, how do we set this up? So we were like, okay, we need to learn to code. We need to learn to design. Somebody needs to take the role of being a CEO or something. And so then we started coming up with our own ideas. So the first idea we tried to explore was around music, around music and community. So we were like, how do you build, the fan club concept was one that had traditionally existed. You would be part of an artist fan club, you would send letters, you would do a lot of these things. And at the time, there was 2 artists, or one in particular, Lady Gaga, and she had a manager at the time called Troy Parker, who was very much like herself, Justin Bieber, Scooter Braun, and others. They were pretty like forward-thinking sort of music artists and music musicians who were looking at how, 2012, they were like the biggest artists of their time. And so Lady Gaga had her own social network called Little Monsters, where it was like basically a space for people to connect with Lady Gaga, connect with other fans who were like Lady Gaga and stuff. And, I think the hardest thing has been for years, everybody's been trying to crack the social network thing, okay, we have this large social network, but what happens if we created more social groups around, a particular artist and theme? So that was our original idea called Kamuzi, and hence why the name still stuck, because Kamuzi was a play on words of community and music coming together. So that was our first thing we ever tried to build and put out into the world. And then we realized we were very creatively naive. Like we didn't really understand, like, what it means to like run a business or do anything. We were just driven by like, we want to connect, we want to bring things together, we want to bring communities together, and we were driven by that. But also at the time, the UK landscape in terms of like, funding, investments, or its appetite to innovation hasn't always been there, would I say. Like, we were building like our own ideas, building these like apps, building these prototypes, and trying to go to people and be like, okay, we're trying to build something that's a B2C, business. It's a social network, so it needs scale.
Yeah.
Scale is one of the most
Yeah.
important things. Okay, to scale, that means we need to have some sort of marketing budget, or we need to have something that allows us to scale this thing. When we would go to speak to investors, they would be like, all right, cool, you've built something, but how would you get a return on investment in 3 years?
And you were like,
Yeah, you know what I mean? And like, for a lot of the ideas we always had, we always saw them as like, these are long-term ideas. These are like behavior change ideas. These are like, it's a journey in a way. And so all of those things kind of built up to like me getting to like 2016, and it's like, okay, I think I need to really hone in this innovation space a lot more, because we were beginning to realize that, okay, we don't have money, we need money, we want to build our own ideas, but we might have to build other people's ideas in order to like make money, and like maybe we can come back and build our own ideas in future. At that time, we began to understand like, oh, there's actually an innovation consultancy space. There were people who, especially at that time, I guess you might remember this, where like the whole narrative around corporate innovation was this thing of like, think like a startup, think like a startup. And so in 2016, I started getting like LinkedIn messages from headhunters who were like, hey, here's this innovation lead role. Would you be interested?
That was a big thing back then. Yeah.
Would you be interested in like come and work in this innovation lab, a lot of this stuff? And my experience as an individual has always been around the making of things. If you tell me how do we bring something to life, that's my strength. But with these, so I thought, okay, cool. With this innovation lead roles, there were gonna be like things where it's like, okay, hey Alex, we want to create a bunch of different stuff. How do you bring this to life? And I thought, okay, this is my bag. But a lot of the interviews were more like, how do you lead a team?
Yeah.
How do you do this?
Yeah, no idea.
How do you? And I'm like, what? What's going on there? Like, I'm literally like in these interviews going, I ain't led nobody in my life. Like, I've been working with 2 of my friends, and we've been doing this stuff around. Richard was doing a night shift in Tesco or Lidl. Akil was working in a Japanese restaurant on the weekends. And I was making websites in my free time to like sustain ourselves, you know what I mean? So I didn't know anything else about leadership. So that was like the disconnect for me. So I thought, okay, maybe I need to do a master's or study and stuff. And I don't actually have a bachelor's degree because I dropped out of uni. I was really obsessed with the uni dropout kind of stuff. So I dropped out. So what happened was I was like, there's no way I'm going to sit down and do a bachelor's degree and sit there for 3 years. Hell no. I guess my brain, there was an arrogance there where it's like, there's no way I'm sitting there. So I was like, okay, how do I get into a master's
without a
bachelor's degree? So it was like a thing of like, okay, I need to find the universities I want to talk to. So CSM was one, RCA was the other. I think Brunel was one because Brunel had an innovation degree. Brunel rejected me right away. I remember when I met Jamie, and you know how Jamie is. Jamie, if you ever watch this,
I hope he's watching this.
Jamie's is a character sometimes with his interactions. So when I met him, I'm like, hey, because my whole pitch was, hey, I don't have a bachelor's degree, but I have a lot of experience and I have a lot of references that can vouch for my experience. And I see here on the master's application page, it says you can apply if you have extensive work experience. So I'm trying to pitch to someone, and someone's looking at you and they're like, what the heck is this guy talking about? You know what I mean? So applied for both, got into the masters at CSM. And that was a very transformative time for my life in a way, because it allowed me to basically just like you're just being exposed to all this new stuff. You're meeting people like yourself, you know, where it's like, oh, I work here, I work at Live Work, I do this, I do that. I'm like, oh, okay, okay, this, okay, that. And so for me, what actually got me a lot was there was somebody came in, and I think his name was Derek Hales, Hales, and he did a talk on speculative design. And for those who are not familiar with speculative design, it's a field of design that creates artifacts less for commercial purposes, but for the exploration of like or the interrogation of technology in society, or the societal or ethical implications of technology.
And it's usually used as a way to explore the future, right?
Yeah. And so like he gave a talk on that, and I was like, oh, it was so fascinating. I was like, oh, I went in. I went in. That was this year. I remember that. It was like, oh, I went in. Then I was like, how do you do this stuff? And so that was the point where it was like, okay.
You found the thing that
found the thing. I found the thing that clicked. Service design was definitely a thing that clicked for me as well. As you start looking at things as like...
as a system.
As a system, yeah. And you're like, what is the different systems in play, and how, you know, what parts of the touch points, you know, does... you know, building, if I'm creating tech, what becomes a touch point in that bigger, wider system, where maybe for a long time I've just viewed everything as just one thing. But speculative design for me was like...
It has a level of creativity that service design doesn't necessarily have.
Yeah, yeah. And that was like...
Yeah.
And then it was like, okay, how... Because a lot of our working community had always been about observing the world around us and trying to almost predict what's next. But we were trying to predict to see if we could win the lottery of it. Like, okay, we come up with this thing.
There was a personal interest.
Yeah, you know what I mean? We've won the lottery, you know, where this thing was more about like, okay, cool. I think I that whole moment just developed my brain to like really just expand itself, and I was really interested in like future context. And then what happened was, when it came to writing the thesis for the master's program, 15,000 word thesis, and then I think, I don't know who said this to me, someone was like, why don't you look into the ethical implications of these technologies coming together? And then I was like, I don't want to do it. At the time I was like, I don't actually want to do it, because it was like, it sounded boring. I can't lie, it sounded boring. But what happened, I began to look into stuff like AI, the Internet of Things. I think Internet of Things was kind of boring, because it was like, you can't really dream about it. Most times you just talk about privacy, the data privacy. Why is your fridge a smart fridge? A hacker can hack into it. Okay, don't have a smart fridge in your house. So in terms of an exploratory conversation, there isn't really much there. That's how I felt. But I guess with artificial intelligence and this whole aspect of it, is artificial intelligence isn't a monolithic technology, right? It's, you know, a bunch of, essentially I describe it as algorithms that are trying to achieve tasks. But it's also a field of study, a field of research, a field of, you name it, which is driven by this concept of, can we make computers and machines to do things that humans are currently better at? For me, it's like, this is a bloody space to experiment things stuff out. And so I was interested in, like, obviously the ethical implications. I was interested in, you know, two things, you know, I come from, you know, the technology industry still doesn't hire enough black folk. However, black folk, if you look at it statistically, are the highest adopters of a lot of new technologies or early technologies. That's a stat. So for me, it was like, okay, cool. If this technology is going to affect my community in these particular ways, how could I create things that could spark conversations or get people around me to be like, okay, there's this technology coming. It might shape the world in this way. What role do you want this technology to have in your life? And so that became the driver for like my thesis, which was about looking at speculative design as a scenario planning tool to mitigate the social implications. But yeah, it's some next wordy shit, but like that was it at the time.
The framing,
yeah, and then we were like, I was trying to work on different projects. One of the things I think I created at the time was called AI Cheat Sheet, which is one of my claim to fame. That if you type in AI Cheat Sheet on Google, it's the #1 thing. But at the time, it was like, a lot of these conversations are highly intellectual, especially the ethics side. Like the ethics side would highly intellectual. You have a lot of academics.
We spoke with Sarah yesterday, Gold.
Oh, my G. Yeah, I love Sarah. I love Sarah. She's my absolute G.
Yeah.
And I've definitely used people like Sarah. I was in uni being inspired by like people like Sarah. And then, things began to like pick up steam. Did a lot of work with Mozilla. Did some work with Google. And we just do.
But so you basically became a consultant.
The company evolved into a consultant type
It's very
stuff.
interesting because I was talking actually these days with Enrica, which is another person that I interviewed, and she was mentioning how in the States design is very much about building products, while here in the UK and Europe in general is very much skewed towards consulting. It's really hard to actually, use design to build products from scratch as an entrepreneur. And it's really interesting that you actually started as the one that was actually building the thing. And then it looks like almost the system pushed you into that consulting space.
It was kind of and I think it was something that frustrated me quite a lot, to be fair. We kind of just went, pew. So we've done this a lot of experimental side. We were like this experimental creative tech. And then we pivoted to being this very strategic design studio where you're doing actually quite a lot of service design projects or a lot of consulting. And then we went from 3 people to 12 people.
And how did you experience that transition? Because from 3 to 12, I mean, it's quite a...
Oh, God.
Like you have to start managing people, right? That's it.
Yeah.
Like, and people come in with certain expectations, like they want a payroll and they want a competency plan, like they want to grow. So how did you go about it?
I think it's probably the thing that burnt me out in a way, because it's like, I guess we grew so fast. It's been me, Richard, and Nikhil for so long, and we almost had like a symbiotic relationship between us 3, where it's like, we don't need to be in the same room, we don't need to be in the same space, we know how things work because we've worked together for so long at that point. Like, if you think of it, like, by the time the company started growing in that size was 2020, we had started exploring business ideas 2012, 2013. So you're like 7 years into the journey with these 2 individuals. So like, you're so enmeshed with each other, but now you're bringing different people to that dynamic. So we had our first employee, it was cool because you got 4 people, so you know how to work. You had number 5, okay, you still have these things, and then I think it went 6, 7, 8.
Yeah, because then they are the majority.
Yeah.
The balance
shifts, and then you go 10, 9, and then what happens is like, things are moving so fast that we are also trying to process how to switch into leadership, because we are founders, and founders don't always make the best leaders. That's the best way to say that. And then it's like, what structures do you have in place as well, which we necessarily probably didn't have. And I think because it's not like we worked, like you said, like most founders might work in an organization and then they leave the organization to set up.
Yeah.
We were making stuff from so young that it was like, we have this problem, figure it out. But we can't give those advice anymore. It's like, how do we be leaders? How do we now manage a business? How do you now manage a lot of those things? How do you now think about stuff like personal development plans? Like, okay, you're a junior designer. What does it mean to be midweight? What does it mean to be senior? How do you do a lot of things? And then the next thing is like, we grew to 12 people without any really external funding. So we were very much like having to, like, how do you even manage that? Okay, we have a project that's come in, but we don't have a team to do the project. But we need capital to hire a team. to hire a person to do the project. So we need to invoice this client here, pray that they pay on time. Then we say, okay, cool, we're gonna hire this person now. And then it was like,
Yeah.
how do you manage a lot of that? And that was hard. That was hard. Because also what happens then is now you've got a bigger team, the project sizes get bigger because you can't.
Yeah, you need to keep feeding the machine.
Feed the machine, yeah. And this is where the interesting thing comes, is the public sector conversation. Because our work for so long at that point has become so heavily healthcare or local government orientated, you know, those industries are still very much tender based.
Yeah.
So what happens now? Okay, you got 12 people. Okay, you need to bid for a particular project that is this much because you need to feed your team for this period of time. Okay, now you enter this whole new world where you're writing these tenders and you're getting zero. Or you're not even getting through to stuff.
Yeah, it's
you're
never
not,
for sure,
yeah.
right?
And I remember Kill having this frustration online one time on LinkedIn, and he's like, has anybody actually ever succeeded on these tenders? And that's when Ben replied, and it was like, no. And I was like, huh? Live what? You lot created service design, so if you're not getting this, then we're doomed. That's how it felt. And, and I guess what happened for us that mostly made it harder was, I think every industry in the world had this post-COVID growth.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, let's spend. Film. And so we, as an agency, grew to meet that demand. And then the demand just
stopped for everyone. Yeah.
And then it's like, shit, we've got to pay. We still got to look after everyone. We still got to do that. And so it became, and at the time we were actually having conversations about, getting external funding to help to grow the business and stuff.
Yeah.
And at the time as well, the AI conversation for me really kicked off again last year, ending of 2022, 2023. So we had to make the painful decision to scale down the team and try to help our team move on to new places and things like that, which was actually quite hard. And then we went into 2023 with a much more smaller team that was easier to, navigate that challenges of running a particular business. But I think at the point when we had grown to that size, I think there was two things. I think for me as a person, I guess I didn't really like the consulting side of things. And I didn't want to be a manager of people, because I felt like, hey, I'm still young. I mean, I don't think managers need to be old. Let me not be, forgive me for anybody who it feels like I'm having a bit of ageism here. But it's just more for me, I felt like I still have a lot of...
You're a maker.
Yeah, so it's like, okay, I don't really want to lead a team. And I don't really... I'm running the business, right? You're always running at full steam ahead. Yeah. Even if your body, your emotions, your spirit is down, you got mouths to feed.
Yeah.
Move fast.
Yeah.
You're going to speak to your finance director. Your finance director is going to tell you, hey, we need to hit this target.
Yeah.
If you don't hit this target. So my whole world, and I had some health issues, I had 2 surgeries, and I wasn't giving myself time to recover and stuff. So I kind of knew it was like, okay, I am going to eventually
do something else.
Yeah, I'm going to leave the business. I think I needed to figure out, a new path for oneself and things, and figure out what I wanted to do. And then,
Yeah, what's now? What's your focus now?
So right now, I spend 3 days a week as an artist in residence.
Nice.
At Google's Art and Culture Lab. Google has a non-profit institute called Arts and Culture, or the Culture Institute. And essentially for the last I don't know, 14, 15 years. They've worked in museums, cultural institutions, artists, on a range of different projects, either digitizing the archives or collaborating with artists to create like interactive experiments that bring art, technology, and design together. And obviously, right now with Google's focus on generative AI, you know, the focus is to create interesting experiments that are like at intersections or many intersections of AI, creativity, design, technology, art,
Yeah,
you
how
name
does
it.
it look like, this intersection? Because I find it very interesting, but like, how does it look like in reality?
I guess for me right now, so I guess you essentially have an idea that leverages generative AI in a novel way. You know, that's really at the core level of it, really. Have an idea, okay, cool, this is the idea that I want people to interact with. Okay, these are the AI models and a lot, you know, I can't go into the full, but they're using Google's, AI text,
Yeah.
and then you would,
To make it happen.
yeah, make it happen in some way. There's a lot of stuff out there that a lot of my colleagues have worked on. Like some of the projects I really like, this one called Food Mood, where you can like type in the different recipes and it combines different recipes from different countries in the world and brings them together. That's really cool. There's one by another colleague called Instrument Playground, where you can generate almost like essentially a playground that allows you to make instrumentals and things. It's actually really cool. It's actually surprised, it's really fun. There's a lot more, but like, yeah, so there's a bunch of us who are like essentially creative coders, where we design, write code, and we have a space. It's a very privileged, I acknowledge it's a very privileged place to be in, to like experiment with technology, which is kind of going back to those values of community, has always been about the experimentation of technology. In a way, I think sometimes the hardest thing is about how do you sustain that practice. So for me, yeah, I guess as an individual, as a designer, I think I come more from I'm not really a process, driven, person in a way. It's more like, what do I want to bring out into the world, and how do I make that? I think I've come very much from that place of like, I made things before I even knew this terms or words existed and stuff. And so for me, it's about that space. So yeah, so at Google right now, I've got that space to experiment and figure things out, which I'm very grateful for. And then I also set up something called the Office of Art and Technology.
What's that?
I don't actually know what it is right now, but because as the artist in residence is at Google, we're essentially like contracting at Google. So our contract, we contract rather than us being Google employees. We're essentially
so you're a bit more freedom.
yeah. So, but like the Office of Art Technology, like, okay, this I right now described it as a vehicle for me to, what did I describe it as? A vehicle for me to explore, what did I say? Ideate, explore, make playful things.
Yeah.
So I'm really interested in play.
Nice.
And that was a big thing with
What is play for you?
It's an interesting one. So I guess it is, in a way, that's a good question. When you explain it like that, like, what do you mean by play? I guess for me, I describe playful things as, in the context of right now, I'm looking at games as the vehicle for things. And I guess with games, what I like about games is this aspect around the mental challenge. So, to achieve something, there is this mental challenge you almost need to go through in order to move on. It's like if you have a bunch of Legos now, there's a mental challenge, because it's like, okay, I've got the sets of Legos in front of me.
In something that makes sense.
That makes sense, yeah. And, getting people to play and experiment with that, and also triggering that emotional response, because when we did a lot of stuff, with community and a lot of the work we did at first when we were trying to like educate people about the role of AI in society or things, play was a big thing for us because we knew we needed to find a way how to make information accessible to everyone. Also, condensed to everyone. And so play was the vehicle behind everything we did. And so it's now kind of taking on those themes and being like, okay, how can play as a, and also my stuff at Google is focused around play. Like for a lot of the things I'm trying to do now, it's about play. Well, I think all of us in the team are all trying to do stuff around play as well. Like play is a big thing, but like for me, I'm really focusing on like play. So right now I'm like trying to figure out like what does those playful things look like? Is it games? Is it toys? Is it products? Is it this? Is it that? Because I think as play in a way as adults, right? Children play, and then it's like somehow some point in your life, it's like society pressures or capital, stops us from being able to enjoy play. And then you get to the stage of like adulthood, and it's like, what is play? So I'm interested in like a lot of those things. I'm like, what does adult play mean? And adult play, if there's some connotations. Adult play can sometimes, unfortunately, not unfortunately, but it can be linked to mostly around sex when you use those terms. But it's like also what is other versions of play. So, I've been really inspired. There's like a designer called Cass Holman, who's based in New York, and she actually has it on Netflix on Abstract Art of Design, where she talks about play a lot and stuff and designing experiences for play. So I'm very much right now in that same place of like play. Like I know a lot of people look at me and like, yeah, Alex knows stuff about AI and a lot of these things. But like for me, I've never seen technology like I'm an AI person. Like I work with the tech, but like the technology is like a tool that can be plugged in to achieve the end result. It's like, okay, where does AI add value to my thing that I want to create? And if it doesn't add value, then I ain't using it. That's where I sit a lot
It's
with.
quite a radical point of view, I must say, today.
But but I think even for us as like a lot of the lab artists, even at Google, like when we are thinking of creating these generative AI experiments, we are thinking about like how does the AI add value to the experience rather than just like shove it in because we want to create a really wonderful experiences. Sorry, I shake the mic. We want to create wonderful experiences or engaging interactive experiences that people would like, but it needs to be meaningful. So for me, it's like, it's not like just add an AI to it. It's like, why? What does it allow us to do?
It's very refreshing to hear, I must
so
say.
so that's why I sit on a lot of things in there. I hope I explained myself well because I realized there's a lot. There's so much more I could touch on, but yeah.
I have a question for you about your definition of design. So what is design for you today? But also, how do you expect design to evolve in the future?
That's a great question. That's a very great question. I guess design is a process. Design is the process of bringing things, for me, in my head that in a form or way that the rest of the world can experience it. That's kind of the way how I see design. For me, it's like design has always been a thing of I've got a vision, I bring it to life. But that also maybe comes to this thing of, the artist in me or that kind of thing. But that very much stayed true even in the community context was like, and every time I spoke about it, like was always this thing of experimentation, just design, just get things down. And I think maybe for a lot of the more, it seems like design had evolved. Like I guess for much more older designers from the older generation, you just designed.
Yeah.
There might be particular theories and principles you follow, but you just designed. And then I think what happened over the last 20, 30 years with design, the rise of design thinking, a lot of these things, design became heavily processed, you know? And I'm just like, as you know, for me, I've never really been one. I believe process is important because I know for community, we learned our success came because we sold process. We saw the process because businesses or clients understood if you follow this process, there's an outcome at the end of it.
Yeah.
For me, I was like, you know, that's not really what I connected with, but I understood that, you know, if you sell a process, 9 out of 10, rarely do businesses ever challenge you for it. But I know that the design process for me, a lot of the times, it's like, you know, I don't even know where we're going to end up. But I'm about to go on this journey. I know you're open to going on this journey with me. And we see where we end up together. If I could sell that, that would be the dream. But from a
I don't think people
tender
like that.
process,
No, that doesn't work.
right.
Show me on this journey.
Yeah, join me on this journey. Be surprised. Be willing to be surprised.
I love
and
it.
stuff. So, but how do you define design? Because I just want to ask.
Yeah, for me, it's 3 parts. For me, it's on one sense, it's making sense of reality, and it's also a way to seek change, right? In a way that is meaningful within whatever context you're operating in, and so it's not just change for the sake of change, but it's contextual change.
Yeah.
And then the third part is really the ability to define alternative futures in a way that no other person or discipline allows you to envision, you know. So it's that the grounding, but it's also that envisioning part that is super important. And I totally agree to the fact that design has been heavily processed. And I think it's one of the big failures actually of the discipline up until now. And the reason why design today is in such crisis, if you like, you know, there is the whole community questioning what is are we here to do and what is our role, and one of the reasons why I'm very keen for this series to interview design founders is because I think in that instance is the best possibility for design to express its full self, because it's not bound to organizational, you know, systems and processes and objectives and KPIs, and you know, because when you put it inside a system of that kind, then you lose the creative part, you lose the envisioning part, and it's just a service of certain goals that are not necessarily, you know, just arbitrary.
Yeah, because I think that was one of my frustrations when I guess I was hiring a team, was or like looking at maybe boot camps where there became the rise of boot camps, which I think is bloody amazing, you know. But one of my frustrations was a lot of the boot camps were very good at like teaching the process side, but not the artistic side. But I guess, you know, and I guess when I'm talking about design, I guess I talk about it from a very the visual side or the visual outputs, because there's also that aesthetic.
It is so important, isn't it?
Part of design, which you have a lot of designers who may be very process driven.
Yeah.
But like, for example, if you had a 12-week boot camp or something, a lot of it would be dedicated to the process, but the visual side would probably get like.
Yeah, like I remember that a lot of my design education was about, you know, balance, was about shapes, was about what is in harmony, right?
Yeah.
There is a lot of philosophy attached to that as well. And from here to that skill, that ability, you just don't learn out of a week design thinking thing. Yeah. You just learn that prototyping comes after whatever, you know, and it becomes such a waterfall thing again, which is never like that, right? I mean, as a designer, you start prototyping even before having an idea to mind, or even before having talked to someone. It's such a fluid thing. Yeah. But in order to make it understandable for people that come from another discipline, then you have to basically reduce it to the minimum common denominator. And through that process, you just completely lose the soul of it.
Yeah.
And then you have people that come say, yeah, I tried design thinking, doesn't work. Like, okay, so what is it you actually tried?
So yes, it's tough.
So yes, it's tough. And I think but I think it's good that the practice at this point there is a sense of awakening, I think, to that, and a bit of going back to some level of, original.
Yeah, I guess execution is one of the most important things in this era, and taste.
Taste, yes.
Taste is also there's been that conversation about taste lately in the world of generative AI, where now you can produce outputs, and the whole world, is incentivized. The whole narrative is push outputs as fast as possible. When you use Midjourney, it says create something in just 60 seconds, and I'm like, it's incentivizing efficiency, but not taste or not quality or not, or valuing even that workflow of a designer. And I was having this conversation. I sat on a panel a couple of weeks ago, and I was like, what happens sometimes is, these AI models are created, and it's like, hey, make something with them. But if you allowed artists and designers to take part in designing those models, what would those experiences be? Rather than it's like, here's a model, make something. What happens if artists and designers are in that place of shaping those things? As I sit here and sit in the space of AI, I'm definitely like somebody who's like super conflicted in general about the space in general. Like I thought about writing a blog that I was going to be like, this is not how I imagined this space to turn out and that type of stuff, because like coming from a world of, I've been working with AI, but I had to train my own data sets. I had to, skill and craft is still needed in the world of generative AI. You still need skill, you still need craft, those things still need to be valued. You still need taste, you still need, hopefully, in the world of a lot of bullshit, sorry, I don't know if I'm allowed to swear in this podcast, there will be, there will be craft and skill and taste, and all of those things will shine, will still be the highest markers. So so that's how I feel about things.
So what do you think is next for AI, and specifically the role of design in it?
Well, I feel like I guess with where AI comes in, right, is I think the best practical uses of AI personally for me has always been about things that allow me to be more creative. So how can AI reduce the tedious tasks of one's workflow? I think that's where a really good place of AI really comes in, as that reduction of workflow. And I think for me, it's like, I want AI to help there so that we can focus more on the execution side. Because I think it's a beautiful journey, a beautiful thing of our human experience to go in a creative process where, like us two sitting here having this conversation 8 years later, if I now just created an AI, write the prompt, imagine to be like me. This is who I am. Imagine to be like you. This is who you are. This creative video comes out. We've lost that whole human experience. We're getting to Clapton, for like 10:30 on a Saturday, having a conversation, getting to meet lovely people and a lot of these things. So it's like, we need to ask ourselves, like, what the heck are we doing? Like, are we just creating a world that we're all gonna hate? That type of stuff, and I think, yeah.
I mean, I like this perspective on questioning, right? And I think designers are really nicely placed to do that. I'm not expecting technologists or business people to question, aspects of what's happening. So I think there is a very interesting space for designers to actually start doing that more.
Yeah, I think there's that interrogation. For me, I've always come from the interrogation bit, and it's like, what world are we building? And is this a world that we're gonna like?
I have one last question, which is about what is your hope for the future, specifically in this space for the design community?
I guess it's like, I think it's for the explorative side of design, to sort of come back in a way. Because I think for a lot of us, we're still looking at design from the lens of the explorations from the 60s and the 70s and stuff, where like chairs, furniture design, you know, architecture, or a lot of these things are still very much explored from those lenses, sci-fi in general, you name it, a lot of these things. And it's like, okay, from this context, how do we explore the particular worlds that we want to live in? And so I think there's an opportunity to like I think we have to interrogate the world for the future so that we can ask ourselves, where are we actually going? You know, are we on the right path? You know, it's just the path that we want to pursue, you know. So yeah, so that's kind of where for me, I'm very much big on is that explorative side and that who's telling the story perspective and, you know, and stuff, and like having people like, you know, Sarah Gold, for example, that's one of my, you know, my personal like champion, you know, I love Sarah to bits, you know, because she's been so helpful in, you know, giving space for me to like tell stories and things. But even you're always the ones telling the stories, right? You've made a conscious decision with your podcast to platform and center, you know, individuals, women, you know, and, you know, to who stories don't get told most of the times, or their story, somebody else is telling that story or shaping that narrative. And I think even that's really important. How does the design community have more diversity of, you know, and also, like I said, and more explorativeness rather than maybe our process driven kind of mechanism that we're in right now.
Well, with that, I think this is a great ending.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lex, for being with us and for telling your story so honestly. I really love it.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
See you next time.
Thank you for watching this episode. If you have enjoyed it, please share it with your network. Design Voices Elevated is a short video series aiming to provide a stage to underrepresented design leaders to inspire new reflections and conversations. My name is Marcia Arico. I'm a strategic design consultant, design leadership coach, public speaker, and author. If you would like to follow my work, please subscribe to designmavericks.substack.com. See you next time.